Without further ado, we now have Making Your Models SPIFFIE with Sjoerd. How's that?
Yeah, nice pronunciation. I'm impressed. We practiced during lunch, so.
Yeah, that's it. See, I can learn. And I'll let you describe the details. So this session this afternoon has a loose theme around attributes and model management. So take it away.
Okay.
I'll give you a wave when you get to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So I don't know if any one of you read the abstract, but I tried to, how am I going to explain it? And I thought, why not try to tell a nice story about 25 years of trauma of dealing with these things? And that's what I do. So there's no videos, no SPIFFIE images, but it's just going to be a story, and hopefully it's interesting to see and interesting to hear. That's annoying. Okay, so who are we? My name is Sjoerd Siebinga. I'm from the Netherlands. I work for Delving BV. We're an open source aggregation platform similar to SIM. So we aggregate data from many different sources and republish them. I'm doing that together with Ron van den Branden. We did the use case I'm going to describe. We did the modeling and the ingestion. And George Bruseker from Takin.solutions, this is also part of his ideas, but he wasn't able to make it. Okay, so the case story that I want to tell you about is a project that started in 2021, and is very similar to how most of these things evolved. So this was a project of 4 cultural heritage institutions. They had 28 databases in total, both museum and archive data, and 1.5 million records. So we decided to propose Arches for the museum site, archive space, another open source tool for the archival data, and our aggregation platform, our aggregation platform to integrate all this data. And we had some additional requirements where actually you needed to link data from both systems together. So if there's an actor in the archive system, you need to be able to link to it from Arches and vice versa. And they had their own custom identifier. So as soon as you create a new Arches record, we basically needed to insert a custom identifier. So we were able to kind of, the code we wrote was writing directly into the Arches database with tile data. So the challenges we had here, and these are the challenges which are pretty much universal over these 25 years. So how do you analyze the source data, and how do you construct the models? Once you start analyzing and talking about it, how do you evolve the models? How do you discuss and document about it? How do you migrate this data? So once you have these models, how are you going to use that? Finally, import them into Arches. So I'll leave the archive space part out of it. And ideally, utilize existing tooling. So our initial solution was we wrote some custom code to analyze all this data. It was a really difficult format. So most of you are developers here, so I can tell you the story. We won the tender, and they gave us some XML data, like this is what it looks like, it's doubling core, it's awesome. So we wrote the tender for that, and then we started the project, and then where's the data? And like, yeah, we need to ask the old supplier. And like, why don't you just export it in the XML format that we agreed? And finally I got a dump, and it was 120 million lines of key values, where both the key and the value was JSON data. So I thought like, okay, there I go. So I wrote some code that converted this, and after 3 days we were done. And then it turned out that like, if this key has this value in this particular line, then that means something completely different. So that was a little bit of a horror, but at least we wrote code, we analyzed it. And then they said initially that there were just 4 databases, turned out there were 28. So we managed that as well. So we had Steven Stats from PavePrime do the initial modeling, So he did that in Google Sheets because, well, we didn't have any better to do for the feedback. And it was quite hard to keep discussing all these models. We were able to reduce the 28 databases down to 6 uniform models inside of CRM. But in the end, we had the models and we did the initial integration. So we wrote some code data for the archival data, how to convert that, and a Jupyter notebook for all the for the Arches data. And our plan was to use the CSV importer to import this data. So far so good, but it was difficult for us and for the customer to basically understand what was going on. So there were we directly converted the Arches model into a mermaid model so that at least you could see what it looked like and how everything interrelated. So the first review of this was, well, this was super painful and very, very slow. It was really hard to deterministically load the data or to incrementally load the data. We also had difficulty validating the correctness of the data. So we basically hooked into Arches an ability to download all the data with OEI PMH so that we could load it into XML tooling and other tooling to actually just get the statistics back from what have we done, is this correct, is it pointing to all the data. But evolving, as most of you know, evolving Arches model is not easy. So once we had them, we had to take all the data out, make a change, run all the conversions again, hope that everything worked, and then load back the data. So this was hard. So it took us sometimes days to load the whole data to find out there was one error and we had to load it again. So we decided to hack it. So we wrote an Golang code that basically took the Arches export formats and directly converted into SQL that we could load. So we took the loading time of all this data from days to down to 7 minutes for everything. So that was quite good. But also getting the data out of Arches was hard. So we also wrote a little bit of code that basically directly connects to the database and takes the data out at a much faster pace. So this was a process that kind of took 3 years before the customer finally accepted it. I'm leaving out a lot of the hard details, but it was not a lot of fun. And I went back like, what kind of tooling have I created? Because we have graphical tooling to do actually mapping. We had quite a lot of the things to do this, but it wasn't working with Arches data. So basically, it would be great to have a generic source analyzer. So something where we can just dump the data in, know what fields we have, what structure it is, what kind of data is in there, but also be able to see how it evolves over time. So if we reload the same data again a week later, that we can see the trends that have changed. I will keep doing that, I'm afraid. But the other thing I kind of realized that there's patterns here that we could actually break by making this agnostic. Because if I want to take a model from Arches into another system, so one of the things we discussed during the project is actually leaving behind archive space completely and move everything into Arches. So we thought that was a kind of good idea. Everything is one system. We have a Arches for archives. That would be cool. But then it became hard again. Then we need to do the whole exercise of creating the models, loading this data, testing everything. So we thought if we can make the models plug-in based, so basically we have an agnostic way to describe the models, but you can make a plugin for Arches, for archive space, for the SIP creator, for anything else, then you can actually have a bunch of functionality that is reusable. So one would be from any model that we have, we can generate the RDF. So you can basically take it out of a system in this model and then generate the RDF. The way we describe it, we also have shackle rules. So with each of the fields, you can basically generate the shackle. We could generate the RDFS schemas automatically. And we could import models. So we could basically point it to Arches, say, load all the models. They're in this model now. What are we going to do with it? The second challenge, which I ran into, is the versioning. So ideally, I would like to say, I'm taking this person model, but I want to take the the name field from this particular model of this version and from another model. So in the SPIFFIE format we designed now, we basically have the ability to do versioned imports. So you can point it directly to a Git repository and say, I want this tag to build it in, or a tag or something else. It also needed to be self-documenting, because I wanted to put a funny GIF in from Eddie Murphy that comes in and looks like horrified, but couldn't make it to work with my Markdown generator. But like every time someone gives me a model like, oh, it's perfect, go look at it, it takes me a long time to understand what is going on and also what the edges are. So at what point do we say we're not going to model it anymore specifically, this is just a literal. So I wanted this, as soon as you have it in this generic format, that we could generate a Hugo site with the documentation and link it to all its previous versions, so you can actually see how it evolves. Finally, I wanted to be able to store it in version control, so that we could also have a distributed system, so that we don't have one huge repository where everyone has to put his stuff, but they can actually publish it on GitHub, have a GitHub action, and basically have the documentation. And finally, we have a lot of need for crosswalks. So once it's in this model, you basically say, these particular patterns, it would be great if you were able to convert it to a Rico or some kind of other format, and that you could call the command line to do this. So I wanted to provide some context. So there are some existing tools already that do part of this. So one of them, can we show some hands who know Solige? That's not nearly enough people, but I can tell a little bit more about it. So this was an initial version of actually every model that Takin.solutions created. They put into this repository for reuse. So you could convert it into certain formats. They would document the patterns. And this was a great first step, but we want to take it one step further to make it reusable. Secondly, who has heard about OG? Again, not nearly enough people. Okay, so OG was a collaboration between Takin.solutions, hopefully Getty Digital, Alessa Laura, to actually take the linked art models and document them in Arches, so that every museum basically who wants to publish the data in linked art can actually take these models and start with them. So I think it's a really good starting point also for some best practices about modeling. I'm good. Okay, so the solution we started building, and there's not a particular project for it. It's also not a hobby project. I want this to exist, and I want to use it, and I would like everyone to use it. So who knows what protobuf is? Okay. So Google decided that JSON wasn't fast enough, so they wanted a binary serialization format to send things between microservices. And they defined protobuf. So this is basically a message format. You can write it in text. It's quite easy to read also for non-technical people. So we use that because it does really well with version control, and you get really fast serialization with it. And we made custom extensions, so you can actually define the CRM classes, the scopes, the ranges, everything needed to generate the RDFS classes, etc. Everything to integrate with your semantic web tooling. So we wrote a CLI that does the conversion. So once you have like data in this internal format, you can generate it really quickly into RDF. You can get the RDFS class, you get the shackle files, you can run the validation. So you can basically take existing data, convert it into this, run the validation, and get good messages. Because we are focusing on Arches for this one, we also started working on a plugin. So you can basically point it to Arches, it will download the Arches models and convert it into this internal format. You can then make changes and push it back into Arches. We worked on a SPIFFIE model to Arches tile conversion. So that means that if you have it in this model, I have the node groups, the tile IDs, all this information that's necessary to generate resource instances and tiles. You can directly convert it. And finally, we worked on a data loader. So what I want is incremental data loading. So if I've done this huge conversion, I ideally would like to run this tool against it and say, oh, there are just 1,000 tiles that changed. These 10 needs to go, and the rest just update them. I will talk a little bit later more about them, but the initial, they're rough edges, but it seems to speed up data loading tremendously because it leaves alone all the tiles that don't need to be changed at all. So finally, and this is kind of my pet peeve, I want everything to be centralized, right? I don't want a single person. If you want to publish your models, you should need to be able to do that, but someone else needs to be able to integrate it. So if someone publish a model and you say, oh, that's great, I would like to take this, I would like to take that, make some changes and then publish your own version, I think that's the way to go, because it's also hard to have a single organization manage all of these. And finally, gRPC, that's the remote procedure calls from Google. We would like to offer a service so that people that have underpowered clients or just say like, I need to do massive conversions, that they can actually push their models into this and basically download a XML dump or something else. So for the Arches workflow that we envisioned, it basically would involve, hopefully what we would like to do is create an editor so that you can say, I need a person. And they say, oh, these are all the person models that they consist of all these various patterns. And then you say, oh, I would like to take this, I would like to take that, I will change this. And then finally you have a model. This you can then export and load into Arches, so Arches has the models. We have a graphical tool that, I have 4 minutes left, this is going to be tough. I wanted to quickly show, maybe I will just do it anyway. So this is our graphical mapping tool. So on the left side you see all the data with all the statistics. So you can click on it and see exactly what is in any field. You can drag and drop to the right side. So this is a really elaborate SciDoc CRM model. You can get a preview of what it will look like. This is an XML format, and you can do all kind of tweaking in order to edit it locally. So this was really super fast. Maybe something for Wednesday. So we could also generate for this tool a record definition. So the record definition allows you to map to it. So we could then take CSV data, XML data, with anything else, graphically map it to the Arches model. That we would generate XML or RDF XML, convert it back into tile, and use the data loader to load it. So ideally, it would be also possible to just edit the XML directly. So you say, oh, everything was fine, just this record is wrong, I need to add an extra field to it. So you can just add the repeating fields, load it again, and it would only load these tiles. So what is currently under development, and I hopefully can quickly show, is a generic source analyzer. So this is going to be an open source tool. You can drop data in it. You can, like with the SIM, you can point it to external sources like Arches. So it could actually periodically load data from Arches, and you could actually see the trends in your data quality. Well, I talked about the incremental loader, and we have an Arches companion which replicates certain endpoints for performance. So that's what we use when we basically have to hit Arches directly. So the ultimate vision that we have with this is that you basically, a new migration would happen like this. You just load data in the source analyzer and get suggestions already. Oh, this pattern looks very much like a person. Do you want to take these models? So that's the get suggestion from distributed models. Save your model, store it in a repository, have then the documentation automatically generated with that particular version. Generate in our mapping tool a target model, and finally kind of make the changes and load. And be able to do this like continuously, incrementally while you're migrating the data. And also when you're evolving, that it should be possible to extract your data from Arches again, find like, oh, these are all the same data, but I just need to remap certain fields into like new particular branches, just do those mapping and load the data again. And again, it would only change the delta, so it would be pretty fast. I still have a minute left. So I'm doing my pitch. I would like, if anyone thinks this is interesting, I would like to show some of the current work in progress, how this works, and do some live demos on Wednesday, because I initially wanted to integrate this, but time is really scarce. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to take a minute. So this is the mock-up of the kind of the source analyzer. So you can that we're currently working on it. We have 2 months left for the final implementation. So this is for a Dutch Arts Council. So they manage all the museum collections in the Netherlands and want to basically harvest this data, publish it, but also get statistics about the source to do improvements. So this is one of the sets, so you get some information like what is in this data, how many unique fields. But the thing I wanted to show now is that you could actually assign certain roles to the statistics. So you can basically say, this particular path is a title, this particular path is an image or something, and have additional validation rules. So you can basically say it needs to contain this type of information, and then get basically certain trends about how this data evolves. So they, for example, have a number of required fields that they need each data set to have. So they really are in need of communicating back to the customers what kind of changes they need to make and validate it. And this is also, the feedback I got for this was interesting for Lingo, because they kind of realized there's a workflow around it. And my personal mission in life is to ban Excel from all our workflows. So most of the time, as soon as you do something, they say, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll just manage it in Excel. I'm like, that's not the solution, that's the problem. So they basically, this will generate reports, so they can actually have a PDF file, send it back to the particular organization and say, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. And when every night there's a harvest, and then you can basically see the statistics going up. So you also have like metadata compliance rules, how many failed, what is the qualities, like to kind of get this more metrics on what type of quality of this data is. And for example, this is words matter, so they have a list of offensive terms, and they don't want people to change it, but they want to keep track of it. Like, how often are we using colonization or other offensive terms? So this was a quick, it also does URL analysis, like how many links are actually persistent identifiers, how many are broken, all these type of quality things. So we are hoping to also publish this to the web so that someone can basically say, I have Arches, this is my Arches instance, maybe just take the data out and give me kind of more of a meta level type of quality. And the interesting aspect from this work came that the participating institutions, the management teams, were mostly interested in this, because they could also like kind of see like, what is the quality? Is it improving? How many changes have actually been made? How many new records are added? How many fields? Because also the metrics, like how many fields does a record have? How often are they repeating? How long are the fields are interesting? Okay. I have taken a deep breath, and I can take questions. That's not bad. 23 minutes.
Your vision for the iterative migration is amazing. It's wonderful.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rob.
This is a stupid question, because I think I know the answer, but this is all open source?
Yes, it's going to be, yeah.
That's thrilling.
Yeah. Yeah, so the idea is really that it facilitates, because we need to support other systems and Arches too. And we would like just have one model and be able to say, okay, we'll just roll it out and we load it into another one. But, yeah. Yeah. I thought this morning it was quite funny that the only two people that got the mic were you and Phil, which are both have a... yeah, yes.
You talked about centralizing the models.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you have any ideas about where, like, are you using GitHub to publish the models, and how do you envision discovery of the models for use across the wider community?
Yeah, so you could use GitHub for it, but like any Git repository is the idea. So once it's Git capable, you could import it. But for discovery, you would need a minimal registry. So some kind of registry that says that this is where all the models are and you index them. And this is kind of a, you rather would not have this, but there's no other way to do this. If you want to have a central way where you could query models like person, you need to have it stored somewhere. And but the idea of having it in Git makes it easy to basically, once you register, like I have a repository here to periodically pull it and update the indexes.
Would that potentially be, Artifact Hub? Something. So the Helm within the Kubernetes ecosystem, that they started by having a, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting involved, but anyway.
Story of my life, Phil.
They started out by just having a single central repository repo that pointed out to the other repos, and then gradually migrated it into Artifact Hub, which I think is artifacthub.io, which might well be open source, but it works off essentially that model that in CI you build a GitHub pages that follows a standard format that provides certain XML files, and then you register on Artifact Hub and it harvests from those XML files basically your definitions, or your metadata of your graphs or whatever. That might be more.
But so there's kind of one aspect I forgot to tell you. So for example, in the Netherlands, they're really aggressively pushing everyone publishing the data as linked open data. And there's a pattern that keeps repeating that someone who's actually not really qualified, but it's just happens their job, needs to create a model. So they spend a year like hacking things together and then discovering all the same things again. And then starting loading data. And I would really want this part to be that people could skip it, that you could compose the patterns, find it, but also use the best practices, because I think we want to move past this as quickly as possible. Have a model, good enough, load data, publish it, integrate it with other people, and do the real work. Yeah.
A follow-up question. Anyone else's? Oh, but you had one better.
I do have a question, but it might actually be better as just a sidebar.
No, I'm curious now. Maybe I regret it, but I'm not like that.
You asked for it.
Yes, I just realized it too late.
Well, number one, congratulations on surviving that ETL. That sounded like a hellish job.
Yeah.
And
It was only fun in the end when it worked.
yeah, and this stuff looks great. I want to make sure I understand the pattern that you're talking about when a model shape evolves, and in particular in arches. So you've got a model in arches, now you've got a bunch of instances that conform to that model, and then you change the shape of the model. Is your pattern then to export that arches data, do the magic that SPIFFIE does, and then push it back into arches, or would you do that all within arches?
Well, that would be possible, but the idea is that the simplest, most robust form is to basically take all the data out, and like via some of the endpoints we have, that's really quick. And then do the conversion and have the graphical feedback, because what I didn't show about the graphical tool, it does validation as well. So if you say this field must be filled, it will error in the graphical tool to say like this migration will fail and all kind of other things. So I think that's a quick iterations, and once you're done, you export it and you load it back into Arches. Just as a robust, simple way to do this, and if it's fast, it's not an issue. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question, and we will have a little sidebar later.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Hey, there's a whole day on Wednesday, so. So, okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Sjoerd.